Hey Kevin, how you doing? My name is George, and I own a digital agency here in Chicago, not too far away from you. I believe you're based in Lisle, but I wanted to shoot this quick video for you to hopefully just give you a few tips or maybe a couple of suggestions you can do to really help your website rank a little bit better. After all, that's really the only reason why we have websites is to really just generate leads, obviously get our phones ringing, and ultimately get more business from our website. Really, a website is not there just to be lounging around on the internet so that people can read or whatnot. Your website is not an informational website. I mean, you're trying to generate business off of it. So I hope that you can take some of these tips, some of these suggestions, and run with them. Maybe implement them, and hopefully you see some really good traction from it. So obviously, this is your website here. I actually really like the way you have it laid out. I like the photos you have. You look like you've got some equipment and stuff that really is some hardcore equipment. You've got a couple of services here, right? I can tell that you do window wells and you do concrete cutting and all that. And then you obviously have some photos of your work and ways for people to get in touch with you. So I think that's fantastic. You've got your number here that's click to dial enabled, so that if people are looking on their cell phone, they can call you up right away. So that's fantastic. But there's a few things that I think that you can do here that really just need a little bit of beefing up. And if you do that, I think you're really going to see some benefits from it. So obviously, here I was doing a search for egress windows in Lisle. You're based out in Lisle. You're number one right here. And in fact, you're the only one, right? Which is good and bad, right? Good and bad. So you're the only one that's going to be found right here. So that's fantastic. The only issue is that I think in Lisle, since Lisle, and I could be completely mistaken, but maybe Lisle is like 15, 20,000 people, something like that. So it's not really that big. There's not really a huge demand in Lisle for egress windows, only because there's not a lot of people. There's not enough density in Lisle, right? So you're just not going to see enough traffic in Lisle, right? Now, if you were in Chicago, that'd be a completely different story, or maybe even like Naperville or Aurora, where the population size is 140, 200,000 people, things like that. And then also what I like to see here in the maps is that there are other people, and no one likes competition, but when you see other competitors, that means that the demand is typically greater, right? So a couple of things you can do is you can expand out to other geographical areas, right? Like I said, Aurora, Naperville, Chicago, just different areas of the Chicagoland market, right? I know that here you say that you're in Wheaton. Wheaton, I believe, is like close to 40 or 50,000 people. Downers Grove, I want to say is like maybe 30,000 people, something like that. But definitely Naperville, you want to expand out to there because there's just going to be more people who are looking for your services, right? One other thing that I wanted to show you here is you've got the title of your site as Basement Escape Window Contractor. I don't know if you can see it right here, right by where my mouse was, but essentially that's the first signal that you're giving to Google of what your website is about, right? So if I were you, I would change that to some of the services that you offer, right? Because you're going to be found much more for those services than for the category of contractor that you are. I hope that makes sense, right? So another thing is your website. You've got to think of your website as basically a bridge, right? It's a bridge between Google and what the searchers are actually searching for, right? And in that middle, sandwiched right in the middle of those two things are your website, right? You're that bridge. And so the more content that you have on your site for keywords such as egress window in Lisle, right, the better you are to rank for those search terms. I hope that makes sense. So if you're a concrete cutting service, right, concrete cutters in Lisle, like you wanna come up for those keywords. If you're a window, let me see. The thing is that I'm not even quite sure of all the services that you provide, just because the content is so light, right? So you do basement flooring, right? Maybe you want to be a basement remodeler, a basement floor in Lisle, right? Like or basement remodeling in Lisle, things like that, right? But but I don't see a lot of that, and there's not enough content for me to know exactly what you do. So therefore, to Google, it's going to be difficult as well. They're not going to assume that you do all of these services, right? So that's why when, for example, I do a search for egress windows in Lisle, your competitor who is not even located or not even based in Lisle is coming up first before you. In fact, I don't even see you on the first page of Google, like nowhere to be found, right? That's why these guys, right, Sure Windows, they're the ones who are right here, right, number 3 for Lisle. And look at this. This is why. Check this out. Egress windows in Lisle, the header, it explains exactly what they do. And then also, if I do their title tags, look at that. You can see it right there. Egress window, Lisle, Illinois. Window well window installation, right? So those are services that they're ranking for, and it just gives Google a better indication of what they're about, right? Because if I do egress windows in Downers Grove, which I think is you were trying to rank for that as well, or you're explaining that you do those services in Downers Grove, you're not found there, right? Let me see. Here's number 1. So number 4, number 5, 7, 9, 10. So you're not on the first page of Google either for that, right? So that's what I would tell you. Look at the amount of content that this guy has. He's not based in Lisle, but yet he's outranking you. And check that out. This is why. Because he's got so much more content explaining what his website is about, right? So another thing is, this is a tool that I use. It's called Majestic. It basically just gives me an idea of how authoritative your website is, right? And part of that is based on how many backlinks you have pointing to your site. A backlink is really nothing other than another website giving or placing a link on theirs pointing to yours, right? And the more backlinks you have on your website, basically the better you're going to rank, right? So yours really has 2, but they don't really have a value of anything. They're really valued at 0, which is fine. We can always go out and get more backlinks, right? But it just usually gives me an indication of how powerful your site is. So you've got 0, right? Check this out. Your surewindows.com, I ran theirs, right? They don't have any backlinks either pointing to that website, right? 0. They have 0 backlinks, right? So that tells me that just the title tag alone right here that says egress window Lisle, I don't know if you can see that just popped up at the top of the screen, right? Just that alone and the amount of content that they have on their site is enough to outrank you. It's enough, right? So I would definitely beef that up. I would change the title tags, and I would expand to other geographical areas so that you start getting traffic. Let me give you an example. This is a client of mine that I've been working with. They do tree care services, and they're based out in Elgin, okay? So they do things like tree cutting, tree limb cutting, stump grinding. They do cabling and bracing, things like that. But look at the amount of content that I put on their site, right? I talk a little bit about the company, and immediately I go into some of the services that they provide. I've got a little bit of graphics here, but it talks about tree doctors, tree removal, cabling and bracing, tree stump grinding, things like that. Reasons why you should hire us, right? And then I go, if you scroll down even more, a little bit of history about the company, right? And then if you keep on scrolling, benefits of tree trimming, emergency tree removal, stump grinding and removal, things like that. So you know exactly what the site is about, right? Especially Google. I mean, they know. But then also, if you look at the descriptor, right, it says tree cutting and removal services in Elgin, right? So if you can see at the top of the screen, that's what the site is about, or at least that page, right? But here, let me take you a step further and show you that when I do a search for tree removal in Elgin, look at this. They're number 2. Now, they're typically hovering between 1 and 2, usually 1, to be honest with you, but in this case, they're number 2. If I do another search for tree limb cutting in Elgin, they're number 3 right now. They're usually in top 3 somewhere. It just kind of hovers, but they're top 3, right? Do you think they're getting calls for tree cutting service in Elgin for being top 3? Yeah, and Elgin, it has 110,000 people, I want to say it is, right? So tree stump grinding in Elgin, again, look at this, top 3, right? They're getting calls for sure, right? And look at this. If I go into the same tool and I look up that website, check this out. I've got link after link after link after link. And these are powerful. I mean, these are, they have a rating of 25, 35, 23, 21, 17. So, I mean, this is definitely having an impact on the ranking for all of those search terms, right? And also, not only that, but if you go to their website, you can see that I've got all of the services that they provide. I've got them all listed out, right? And so if I go to cabling and bracing, look, I've got, okay, there it loaded. So now I've got a lot of content about cabling and bracing, especially in Elgin, right? And if you look at the description tag on this, right, look at that. Tree cabling and bracing service in Elgin. So again, it tells Google exactly what the site is about, and that's what you want to do. This is my website here. If you'd like just a little bit more info or maybe a few other tips or suggestions, I'm happy to provide that for you. You can either book a one-on-one consultation with me, absolutely zero cost, but just I'll kind of give you a little bit more in-depth on what you can do to really just start generating more traffic off of your website. That's all you really want is more calls and more calls so you book more deals, right? If you scroll down a little bit more on the website, you see that this is not my first rodeo. I mean, I've been ranking websites for the past 6, almost 7 years now, right? And I know how to do it. So I just got some success stories here for you. You can look at those. You can either book from this link here, or you can reply to my email. We'll schedule a time, and I'll go in a little bit more in depth on what you can do. Thanks, Kevin. Hopefully this made a little bit of sense. If not, we can kind of clarify it a little bit more on a follow-up call, and hope to talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.